A nuclear weapon, also called atomic bomb, nuclear bomb or nuclear warhead, is an explosive device that releases large quantities of energy from relatively small amounts of matter. A nuclear device no larger than a conventional bomb can devastate an entire city by blast, fire, and radiation. There are estimated to be 13,080 nuclear warheads worldwide. Almost 90% of them belong to two countries, the United States and Russia, each having over 4 times as many as the other countries combined. The United States conducted its first nuclear test explosion in July 1945 and dropped 2 atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, in August 1945, only 1 month later. In 1949, just 4 years later, the Soviet Union conducted its first nuclear test explosion. Other countries include China, France, the UK, Pakistan, India, Israel, and newest member, North Korea. Scientists argue that it would only take 10 to 100 nuclear bombs to destroy Earth. Yet these powerful weapons of mass destruction have been mishandled or fumbled, more that you know. Here are 5 times we almost nuked each other. If our content keeps you entertained, please reward us with a like, a share, and subscribe. Already a subscriber? Then don't forget to hit the bell to get notified when new videos drop. Also, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram. To become a supporter of the channel, visit patreon.com/thefactfactory. Everything is appreciated. Now, let's get into it. The Norwegian rocket incident was fueled by post-Cold War nuclear tension that took place only 4 years after the end of the Cold War. This incident is considered to be one of the most severe. In 1995, a team of Norwegian and US scientists launched a rocket off the northwestern coast of Norway. The rocket carried scientific equipment to study the aurora borealis over Svalbard. Somehow, Russia did not receive the heads-up. To Russian radar operators, the rocket appeared similar in speed and flight pattern to a US Navy submarine-launched missile, leading the Russian military to misinterpret the rocket's trajectory for Moscow, the capital city of Russia. In Moscow, a signal went out to the nuclear briefcase, known in Russia as Chejit, which always accompanied the Russian president, Boris Yeltsin. Russian ballistic missile submarines were put on alert in preparation for a possible retaliatory strike for 8 long minutes. When it became clear the rocket did not pose a threat to Russia and was heading away from Russian airspace, the alarm was cancelled. The Norwegian rocket incident was the first, and thus far only known incident, where any nuclear weapons state had its nuclear briefcase activated and prepared for launching an attack. The 2017-18 North Korea crisis. The Korean peninsula was divided after World War II. The North developed an authoritarian form of government backed by the Soviets, and the South allied with the US. Kim Jong-un is a North Korean politician who has been supreme leader of North Korea since 2011. Kim rules North Korea as a totalitarian dictatorship, and his leadership has followed the same cult of personality as his grandfather and father. Since assuming office, Kim has been put on trial for crimes against humanity and accused of ordering the assassination of his half-brother, Kim Jong-nam. North Korea is estimated, as of January 2021, to have approximately 40 to 50 nuclear warheads. Kim Jong-un sees nuclear weapons as a means of gaining equal status with the United States. There have been several confrontations between North Korea and the US's strongest ally, Japan. Amidst the growing tensions, on August 29, 2017, without any warnings, North Korea tested a ballistic missile that passed over Hokkaido, the second largest island of Japan. This incident triggered ballistic missile sirens to blare in parts of Japan. Citizens living beneath the missile's flight path received a J-alert message on their cell phones at 6:02 a.m., just 4 minutes after the projectile was launched. This J-alert system is designed to quickly inform the public of threats and emergencies such as earthquakes, severe weather, and other dangers. The Cuban Missile Crisis, also known as the October Crisis of 1962. This was an intense 13-day standoff during the Cold War between the world's 2 nuclear powerhouses, the USA and the USSR. When the US failed trying to overthrow Cuba's communist government with what is now known as the Bay of Pigs, Cuba sought assistance from the USSR. The Soviet Union's response was to secretly ship nuclear missiles to Cuba. When this was reported to President John F. Kennedy, he convened a meeting of the 9 members of the National Security Council and 5 other key advisors in a group that became known as the Executive Committee of the National Security Council. During this meeting, President Kennedy was originally advised to carry out an airstrike on Cuban soil in order to compromise Soviet missile supplies, followed by an invasion of the Cuban mainland. After careful consideration, President Kennedy chose a less aggressive course of action to avoid a declaration of war. On October 22, President Kennedy announces that U.S. Navy ships will intercept all shipments to prevent further missiles from reaching Cuba, using the term quarantine rather than blockade. This infuriated Soviet officials, stating in a letter to the U.S., "The violation of freedom to use international waters is an act of war." On October 27, a U.S. spy plane was shot down by a Soviet missile, despite orders to avoid Soviet airspace by at least 100 miles. Later that same day, a U.S. Navy ship dropped a practice depth charge to signal a Soviet patrol submarine to surface. However, the captain of the Soviet submarine was unable to make contact with Moscow and feared that war had already begun. He ordered the use of a 10-kiloton nuclear torpedo against the American fleet. There are 3 head captains aboard who have to unanimously give the thumbs up before firing a nuclear missile. Armed and ready. And, with 2 thumbs up, second in command, Vasily Arkhipov, refused permission to launch. He convinced the captain to calm down, surface, and make contact with Moscow for new orders. The 1961 Greensboro B52 Crash. Around midnight on January 23, 1961, a B-52G, based at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro, had a rendezvous with a tanker for aerial refueling. During the hookup, the tanker crew advised the B-52 aircraft commander that his aircraft had a fuel leak in the right wing. The aircraft was immediately directed to return to base. By the time the aircraft approached to the airfield on its descent, the plane was falling apart. The pilots were no longer able to keep it stable and lost control. 5 men landed safely after ejecting or bailing out through a hatch. 1 crewman aboard did not survive his parachute landing, and ultimately, 3 died in the crash. In addition, on board were 2 Mark 39 thermonuclear bombs that eventually separated from the gyrating aircraft as well. Researchers stated the yield of each bomb was more than 250 times the destructive power of the Hiroshima bomb and large enough to create a 100% kill zone within a radius of 8.5 miles or 13.7 kilometers. The aircraft wreckage covered a 2 square mile or 5.2 kilometers area of tobacco and cotton farmland, about 12 miles or 19 kilometers north of Goldsboro. The first bomb descended by parachute and was found intact and standing upright as a result of its parachute being caught in a tree. Officers responsible for disarming and securing the bombs from the crashed aircraft stated that the arm safe switch was still in the safe position, although it had completed the rest of the arming sequence. Later in 2013, information released as a result of a Freedom of Information Act request confirmed that a single switch out of 4 prevented detonation. The second bomb plunged into a muddy field at around 700 miles per hour, or 310 meters per second, and disintegrated without detonation of its conventional explosives. The tail was discovered about 20 feet, or 6.1 meters below ground. Pieces of the bomb were recovered, but after several days of digging, excavation of the second bomb was abandoned as a result of uncontrollable groundwater flooding. Most of the thermonuclear stage, containing uranium and plutonium, was left in place, but the core of the bomb had been dislodged and was removed. In July 2012, the state of North Carolina erected a historical road marker in the town of Eureka, 3 miles, 4.8 kilometers, north of the crash site, commemorating the crash under the title, Nuclear Mishap. The 1965 Philippine Sea A4 Incident. USS Ticonderoga was one of 24 Essex-class aircraft carriers built during World War II for the United States Navy. Decommissioned shortly after the end of the war, Ticonderoga was modernized and recommissioned in the early 1950s as an attack carrier. On December 5, 1965, just 31 days after Ticonderoga's departure from U.S. Naval Base, Subic Bay, in the Philippines, a Navy A4 Skyhawk was being moved during a military exercise when it rolled off its elevator into the Philippine Sea, with the pilot, Lieutenant Douglas M. Webster, and a 1-megaton hydrogen B-43 nuclear bomb still aboard. The Skyhawk sank quickly into waters, estimated around 16,000 feet deep. The plane and bomb were never recovered. Experts say the pressures at that depth may be enough to detonate the weapon, and the waters were so deep that it would have been hard to detect. Even if the weapon is still intact, it would be nearly impossible to find, as very few vessels can make it down to that depth. It was not until 1989 that the U.S. Department of Defense revealed the loss to the public 24 years later. Crazy stuff, right? Check out one of our other videos on the James Webb Space Telescope, or find out why hippos are the real African king. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'm already looking forward to seeing you in the next one.